hour. That's my share that I'm fighting for, and fighting for my children and your children every day. And I'm not deterred by your little simple propaganda and little simple ignorance about my citizenship, my children's citizenship, my grandchildren's citizenship, nor am I deterred by your ideas that we should not be involved in politics at all.
All right, we've got Omar Baruti in the studio with us. And Omar, we're talking about, we've got 3 topics on the table. If you were listening on your way in, you heard us talking about local politics. You heard us talking about lead in the water, the pipes, poison, etc. And you also heard us talking about killer cops murdering black people, even down to the point of little 11-year-old girls. And I've got a problem with this word accusation. Officer resigns amid accusations of excessive force on 11-year-old student. But we saw this on video. As far as I'm concerned, it was a closed deal. We saw it on video. It's right here, Omar. It says, the incident. Officer Christensen spent the past 4 years assigned to Mesa View as a school resource officer. The incident in question involved a 6th grade student who was in trouble for behavioral issues. KOB4 is not identifying the girl because she is a minor. It goes on to say, the day of the incident, school administrators can be seen on the lapel video following the girl around campus as she waits for her mom to pick her up from school. It says that this morning she went straight to the cafeteria. She took more milks. Now listen, than she was supposed to. She threw a milk on the ground, said Officer Christensen in the lapel camera footage obtained by KOB4 investigates team. According to Officer Christensen, field report the child assaulted 2 school employees that morning. The officer claims one assault occurred when the girl walked past the assistant principal and brushing past him, and the second occurred when the girl attempted to open the door and walk past the principal. Ultimately, the charges against the girl did not stick. Following the perceived offenses, Officer Christensen loses his patience, grabs the girl's backpack and throws her to the ground. The struggle lasts for roughly 6 minutes. Officer, now listen to this. This is the officer. Put your arms behind your back. Student, ow, you're hurting my arm. Get off me. Officer, turn over. Turn over. Do not resist. Do not resist. Officer, stop resisting. Student, ow, you're hurting me. Administrator redacted. Stop resisting. Officer, put your arms behind your back. Student, okay, let me stand up. School administrator Zach, let's stand her up. At one point, a school administrator repeatedly tells the officer to allow the girl to get up. Officer Christensen, she is not a threat to yourself or others at this moment, said the school employee, to which the officer replied, no, she is. It goes on like this. In the report, Field Officer Christensen, he writes, she was very strong, stronger than I was. Several minutes into the confrontation, a school employee tells the officer his actions have gone too far. We're not going to use excessive force, the school employee told the officer, to which Officer Christensen replies, it's not excessive, is what he said. He said she was strong. He said an 11-year-old girl, Omar, was stronger than he was. And in the video, you can see guys like Christensen, the other officer, I can't think of his name now, but you can see them holding little black children at bay with big .357 Magnums pointed at them. Go ahead, Omar.
You know, the state started not with this child. It started with immigration. has escalated. Back in the day, and I say back in the day because my first year of Memorial in college, I taught school, got an integrated school system. And children then could be disciplined in the school. You could spank a child. But what I saw was unusual because I graduated from Leicester High School here in Memphis, and when you spanked a child, your parents were aware, and they were on board with making sure you were disciplined in the school system. But in Syracuse, New York, when those children were being spanked, I saw white parents coming to the school telling black administrators, "You're not going to spank my child. I don't want no nigger touching my child." And when I moved from Syracuse, New York to East St. Louis, Illinois, I taught school there. I was living in St. Louis. I saw the same thing again, that integration. And these white parents felt like there's nobody black that's able, that has the authority to touch my white child. And then I saw black parents over that same period of time say, "If you're not going to whoop little Johnny, then you can't whoop Jamal. You know, let's just make it even." And then after a while, discipline came out of the school. And child abuse, and we never abused our children, but that became the order of the day. You got to worry about, you know, children being abused, as if white parents were saying that black administrators are abusing white children. And so now discipline is gone. It's completely gone. And so now what do? They bring the police into the school. And the police, and they want the police in there because they want the authority to do right now what they didn't, but they had taken away from them back in the day. And that authority is abusive, very abusive. There's no need for a police officer to be in the school system, period. No need at all. But there is a demand for the parent to discipline those children while they're at home. And right now what I see going throughout America, not just in black America, but throughout America, is ineffective parenting. Your children will curse you out and you act like it's just part of the day. They disrespect you. They don't obey you. You act like it's okay. It's children just being children. That Dr. Seuss type of child rearing has caused us to go into this quadrant right here where children are doing what they want to do, and as a result of their actions, then the consequence is incarceration, sometimes even death. Parents have to become parents and stop being their child's best friend. Let Jesus be their best friend. You're going to be the parent. That's what they really need. And so, in this situation, first, the police officer shouldn't have been there, and secondly, what the school should do, and what they did back in our day, is they call the parent. And if you don't want your child to cut up in school, then you're going to discipline them at home, so when they come to school, they know how to act. But somewhere the parent has to be involved. Throwing milk on the floor, that's not discipline. Doing things that upset the school system, that's not discipline. But if you know your child's like that, then you should step forward and take charge of that child. Most states still allow you to spank your child. But when the police officer steps in, he's exercising his authority to the max. And he feels like he has the authority to do it, and you can't stop him. That's what he's trained to do. And since he's trained to do that, his mindset won't even go back to the stage of being a parent. He can't realize this is somebody's child, and I need to treat them like they are a child because they don't know what the hell they're doing. I'm the adult in the room. But somewhere that get off track, and when you get off track like that, whether you intend to or not, then there's some consequences that you got to pay for, and that officer should pay for those consequences.
Yes. It says that they are claiming that the safety of all students entrusted to our care is among our highest priorities, Talut. We can't tell because we see this continuously. And there's something wrong with the mindset of this kind of so-called human being who attacks little children. And just like we are contrasting and comparing the various communities in this city, Omar pointed out we don't see that when it comes to white children. Only when it comes to black people and black children. What's wrong with that picture, Talut?
Well, the picture goes back to the early stages of slavery in the United States of America, when children were seen as animals, their parents too, were less than animals. And children were taken away from their parents and sold like commodity, product. The They were disciplined harshly in many cases, and they did hard labor work as well, right alongside of the parents in many cases. But today, we see the exact same thing under the Trump administration. We see children abused, children handled like adults, beaten, and some have died along the idea that if you take away the children, the immigrants would not try to cross the border of the United States of America. So this insanity, it continues. It was quiet for some decades, but it's alive and well again now. And so the same attitude we find in how certain police officers treat children. An example is what Wallace just read about a police officer who mishandled this child, 11-year-old child. And there are other instances where police have shot and killed children. Okay, so it's a mentality. Okay, it's an evil mentality. It's a mindset that helpless people are usually the victims of horrible, horrible crimes against them. Child abuse and human abuse. See, this idea that to gain control of a human being, one has to beat that human being. Beat them, that's slavery. Beat them and kill them if necessary. That's directly part of the American heritage, American history. Beat, brutalize. And look, to be honest with you, and the truth is, it hasn't gone anywhere.
Right.
Somehow we think that we're in a better time and a better place because you have a cell phone, but no, the mentality is still here, alive and well. And children have always been the victim of satanic thinking, this innocence. And especially this innocent that happened to have dark skin. Has no rights, this child has no human rights at all. Jail them, put them in pens, overcrowded pens. Don't allow them to use the restroom. Feed them anything. And this is happening down on the border of the United States of America today. So what do we expect? Do we expect this cruelty to go on along the border of the United States, but we ourselves, who are dark-skinned people or black people, not subjected to that same cruelty? We are. And we're getting it every day. The police officers are beating and killing our children, or killer cops are beating, and KKK cops are beating and killing our children every day. And they are looking and searching for the right candidate in the adults to beat and kill. What is the right candidate? Someone who can't defend themselves, someone who can't hire lawyers, someone who can't, who don't have the respect among their own people. These are great candidates for these cops or these evil people to find. And the last thing is, doesn't it give you some sense of a human sacrifice type of situation that's going on? Like if there was a volcano somewhere, they can take these victims to the top of the volcano and drop them in, worshiping to the Ooga Mooga god or something like that. This is what you're getting. This is what we're seeing. We're actually seeing human sacrifice. Okay, but we don't want to believe it because these people don't look like they would do something like that. It's crazy.
And Omar, Talut mentioned black people who would be sacrificed, killed, and murdered. He pointed out there are those who perhaps cannot fend for themselves. But the other element would be those who have the strength and courage to speak out, to present a people with their solutions to the problem that they face. They oftentimes face this kind of coming back against a people. Is that not right, Omar?
You know, black folk need to wake up and realize we live in America. And you already know the history. You see it on YouTube and TV every day. Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old, was murdered by a police officer a few seconds, a couple of seconds after he got out of the police car. Mm-hmm. And he was innocent from the day he was born. And they couldn't find anything in his background. They checked his background thoroughly. Every school he's been to to see if he had any trouble with any disciplinary actions of any kind, including the juvenile justice system. They found none. So then they went to his mother's background to see what she had on her record, as if her record is the same as his, trying to find some justification for murdering a child. But he did nothing, and he still murdered. You look at Freddie Gray, and you look at the young Trayvon Martin. America's soil is filled with the blood of our children. You got to know that when you put somebody like that inside of your school building to oversee your children, then anything can happen, and the worst things usually do happen. Mm-hmm. They don't need to be there. Mm-hmm. If you're going to have an officer in the school system, he should not carry a gun, and then the second thing, he should be trained on how to handle children in disorderly conduct among children, not among grown folk, because you don't body slam children. That's not something you do. That's totally out of order. You might body slam an adult that's committed a crime, but a child, no, you don't do that. You don't body slam your own children. So no, he's out of order, the school system is out of order, but you accept it, and you don't do anything about it. You need to go and protest and tell them and get them out of the school and make sure there's no guns coming to school. Not children bringing guns, but also no parents, no adults bringing guns. Because if somebody who's not disciplined enough to know how to handle unruly behavior, they may draw that gun, like you just said. Draw that gun, and they may actually use that gun, and they've used it before. The school system is messed up, but we allowed it to get like that. If you don't like your school system, like Dr. Talut said, you have the power in the vote to change it. But you got to look at it, and you got to make sure you go out there and change it. Put something on the agenda, on the referendum, say, hey, we want to fix this right here, because this ain't going to work. My child's going here, I don't want no guns around my child. I don't want my children treated like that. And fix it. But until you fix it, we're going to continue to suffer the same thing we've been suffering for the past 100 years. And it's not going to get any better. In fact, it's going to get worse, because right now there's a fear among this white population that we may rise up and do something to them what they've done to us ever since slavery. That fear is there, and it's getting worse and worse. That's why you have those things like in Charlottesville, North Carolina. The Jews will not replace us. And there were some good people on both sides. That's why you have that white supremacy rising up inside the cabinet of Donald Trump and his colleagues. That is evident, and it's not going away.
Omar, when we look at the conditions of black people, has anything changed?
You know, things have changed. The biggest thing is we've gone to sleep. we went to stage 3 coma, now we're going into stage 4 coma.
Right.
The only saving grace is that Donald Trump is being Trump. And he'll stick a pin in you every now and then to remind you that you need to come out of your coma before you die inside of it.
Right.
Well, in terms of this killing of black people, you mentioned protest. What should be done? What else should be done, Omar,
You know,
in terms of we as a people?
back in the day, I have to go back in the day because we didn't do nothing today.
Right.
Back in the day, there was a minister in Holly Springs, Alfred Skip Robinson, organized a group in the state of Mississippi. And they actually went against the Klan. And when the Klan shot at them, they shot back. They didn't play. He became a minister in the Nation of Islam, Minister Abdul Aziz Muhammad. He was a minister of Holly Springs. When I went to Holly Springs, he died, and that's the reason they didn't have a minister. I went down there to sit in his position for 3 years. Back in the day, there was a group called, I think it was called the Deacons for Justice. And they decided to fight against those that were trying to oppress black people. And they didn't sit around waiting for the vote. They didn't sit around waiting for the legislature to do something about the condition that they saw people in. They got up and took arms. And they took arms and they decided, hey, you shoot us, we shooting at you. We ain't gonna sit here and wait for the bullets to fly and run for cover. We gonna shoot back. Somewhere, and it ain't necessarily with guns, but somewhere we gotta shoot back. Every time they step out the water the wrong way, shoot back and put them back in the water. And if they drown, so be it. But you can't step out the water at us in a disrespectful way, and we don't do anything about it. You're going to pay the price with your job and with your money. You're going to pay the price. And we're not going to stop protesting. Like the man that killed Tamir Rice. He was fired from another police system. And they hired him over there. There should be a directory of any police anywhere on earth who got fired, and what reason they get fired for, and should they even hire them? And they may be one way they did something so egregious they nobody should ever hire you. That database should be there, so I can just click your name and pull up your record, even from a private citizen, and I can determine whether or not you're a decent police officer to work in my city. That database is not there, but it should be there, because like they said about that Botham, that young man named Botham.
Yeah, Botham John.
Botham John.
Or Gene.
Yeah. So the lady who was dating the guy, and he had already murdered somebody.
Right.
Some years ago.
Right.
What were the circumstances, and why don't the people know that? They should know who you are. Know the circumstances around your being still on the police force after you murdered somebody.
Right.
If you can go to a country like England, and the murder rate is a tenth, not even a tenth of what they have in this country, then how come that country can do so well without the murders and without the police brutality, and we can't? If you go to a country like Japan, the same thing. It's even better. 12 murders in 1 year. Police officers don't do that mess in Japan. It's not just in Japan, it's around the earth. What's wrong with this country? We have to fix it, and if we don't fix it, we're going to be victims of it. But we can fix it, and we have to fix it with legislation, we have to fix it with suing your behind so you can't stand up no more.
Right. Cedric, I want to ask you about what should be done and how can it be done. He mentioned referendum, he just mentioned legislation. Omar did. Legislation politically. How should a people approach a situation where all of these injustices have been committed against them?
But no, the number one word you said was justice, and that's something that we have a supreme law here in this country that we're supposed to have. So first, I think that the first step is to understand what those protections are, what those laws are, and how they apply to us, and how these cities and states are violating those laws against us. And when it comes to that, the young lady you were talking about, 16 years old, a student, we have to look at our mental health patients. We have to look at a lot of different things that in the past are, as Omar says, back in the day. Back in the day, we had some compassion when we had a police officer. It wasn't such a rush situation. Everything is a rush. Comply right now, or we're going to move on you. I mean, you could argue with a police officer. You could have a disagreement with a police officer. You could go back and forth with a police officer. Back in the day, you could even wrestle a police officer back in the day. You would normally lose because they were in shape back in the day. It was a whole different. It was a whole different police force. They were. The part of the training was these different martial arts techniques and things like that. So many different ways to diffuse a situation without deadly force. Today, it seems that deadly force starts off the matter. I mean, the first thing that an officer comes at you with, soon as he sees anything but compliance, is death. he's going to pull his gun. He's going to pull out a weapon. And we just had a disagreement. I mean, I'm still asking you, what's your name, officer? And you got guns out. Or I'm asking you, why are we having this conversation, officer? Well, if you don't give me what I want, I'm gonna have to shoot you.
Yeah.
And you know, these things come from the door. So the comply or die situation, I think that we definitely have to rise up as a people and to demand the justice that we're supposed to get. We have to demand that these employees that we are forced to pay put in their place. They can't be out here harassing us. They can't be just diving right on us when they come at you today. It's not hello officer. We used to be able to say that back in the day, remember? You know, hello officer, and they would usually say hello, and that was it. You know, today, if you even look like you're about to say hello, you're going to get a look back that, you know, you better not say anything to me, or they won't give you eye contact whatsoever so you can say hello. So you don't even expect to get an hello. You know, yes, we definitely need to rise up. Now, before I get too far into it, I have an announcement to make, and I want to make sure we don't get too far into the show without making sure that we spoke for the North Lake Senior and Disabled Community Neighborhood Watch Committee. Now, they're having a community holiday sale fundraiser on Saturday, November the 2nd, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Now that's going to be down at, so before you holiday shop next Saturday, please check out their sale. You are sure to find some things that you need at great prices. It's located in a temperature-controlled senior center at 5190 Wesley Park Drive. Now that's right off of Covington Pike near Walmart and Methodist Hospital. The Methodist North Hospital, you know, we have a few of those Methodists running around, so make sure you go to the right one.
That's right.
And please go by and support our seniors and disabled neighborhood town watch. The phone number to call, get this, 901-643-4953. Again, one more time, 901-643-4953. Come on now, check it out, the grassroots, support your community.
Yes.
Yeah, so, but yes, sir, I go back to what you were saying before, and I'll end that with, we have to unite. That's the key to everything. We have to unite.
That's right.
And we have to find a point that we're all agreeing upon that we need to force and enforce.
Sure. And speaking of uniting, November 16th as well, another announcement. Here comes another one just like the other one. Unity Rally, Hollywood and Chelsea. What time, Talut?
6 o'clock. I mean
6
12
o'clock.
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock noon.
12, high noon.
High noon.
Unity Rally. We'll be talking about stopping the crazy killing and unifying, as you have said, Cedric. And let me ask you again, Cedric, another question. Why is it, and here's something that we can all weigh in on, this gets into the psychology of a culprit. I think this is quite interesting, because on TV we see some of these shows where they're using psychology to interview some of these crazy killers. And now I think it's time to add some of these killer cops into that equation. Why is it that we only see white cops, killer cops, killing black people? We never or rarely see black cops killing black people. And sometimes you'll see a discussion, like you said, a conversation. And when a black cop happens to kill a black person, oh man, you see on Fox News and some of these other crazy way out people, and he was black, and he was black, and he was black, jumping up and down. You see that. While Cedric is taking that call, Omar, do we have a caller?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hold on, caller. We're coming right to you. You have them on hold, Cedric?
Yes, we do. We have the caller on hold, and they have a question for us. But just to weigh in real quick on the white cop, black cop.
Yes.
The black cops, and again, now these are African American or people of color wearing uniforms of that the police wear. I have to say it that way because I'm not actually calling them cops. I'm not actually calling them black people, but they appear to be, because you have a lot of that mixed into and blended in. As in, we were down in Coldwater, Mississippi a couple of weeks ago, and we met one of those officers. I mean, they're out there.
They're out, yes.
And he let us know clearly, and he told me to my face that when I asked him, is this the way we treat our people? Because he was being very aggressive and very rude to some African-American senior citizens that were out there, as well as just some regular people. We were just trying to load into our cars, and he clearly let us know without a doubt, those are not my people. So, you know, we do get those, but that's not as newsworthy. See,
yes.
You know, when we get these incidents where a black cop kills a black child, a black person, then that doesn't really get too much news. They keep that under the rock because that doesn't fuel the fire that they're trying to breed. They're having us confused as to who are we fighting. And I'll say that real quick, the Japanese, they just did some bombing back in 1943. I just watched this little documentary. But I noticed the thing that hurts your heart mostly is not the warriors that are fighting the warriors. You know, you got white supremacists, and they clear about who they are. That's a battle over there. But we're grabbing civilians also, because we don't know who the enemy is. So just like when we're dealing with the police, all of the people are wearing blue are catching it, but there's not all of the people wearing blue inside there. But because of the silence, you know, silence is an action. You know, not doing anything is an action.
It's an action.
You know, everybody gets vilified for it.
All right, let's take this call. Go ahead, caller.
Hold on. Yes, caller.
Let's pick up just a little bit, if you don't mind, man. Is she all the way up?
She all the way up.
All right. Go ahead, ma'am. You have the question for the individual who said a Negro of the United States. And can he prove that?
A Negro, if he was not a citizen of the United States, he could not be president of the United States.
Very good.
Ma'am, don't play games. We're not here for games, we're serious. And the thing about it is, if I have to tell you who the Negro was, who was president of the United States, you're playing games.
Well, let's do this. Hey, ma'am, what is a Negro? A Negro is property? Not human. Well, I've always said that when we raise the question of the definition of a Negro, there's more than one definition of a Negro. And I've always said, and can we redefine definitions? I've always said that we could. And here's my position. We don't want to spend too much time on this because we want to stay on this politics and then get on the police killing and then get on local politics. But I thank you for calling, and we value our callers and their questions. Go ahead. You challenge?
I challenge you to make a dress decision.
Gotcha. And you're... Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your call. And now, I've said a Negro is one who will never ever gain rightful ownership. That's been my position. And she called and said, based on the, but I'm sure she wasn't talking to me when she said she challenges me to read the Dred Scott decision, And then she goes on to talk about how other ethnic groups become white. And she's absolutely right, because when you study racial and ethnic minorities, you will see in that section, in that particular book, at that course, that many groups became white. And here's my position on them. My analysis, you have to use your own imagination. Why? Number one is the so-called white race is seeking to build their numbers. The other part of that is that many people have been programmed to want to be white because of the propaganda and etc. Is that right, Omar?
You know, the woman makes a good point, and I can't dispute the point. I work at a mortgage company, and I see people who come from different parts of South America, look darker than anybody in this room.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the driver's license, it says white.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out, how did you get that? Look like the midnight, you know.
Midnight in the summertime.
Midnight double time. Okay?
Yeah.
But you have white on your driver's license.
Right.
So it's a political statement so that you can get the classification that give you the maximum benefits.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you know, she gives you room, you know, room for pondering.
Mm-hmm.
And like Negroes were considered property, but now Negro is something they gave us. We didn't give that to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't. That's not our self-definition.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something they defined us as. Like you define a cow or a chicken as a property.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as long as you define it and we accept the definition, then we stay what they defined us to be. Self-determination, what we got to do. And we need to quit running from who we are.
Yes.
Run to who we are and embrace our history and culture.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can't say we are whatever they said we were.
Mm-hmm.
We can dispute it and we can fight about it, but we don't have to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. I agree with the lady.
Yes, a good point. I say that we went from Negro and nigger, and James Brown brought us, I'm black and I'm proud. Open the door, and I'll get it myself.
Yeah, because we were confused. Think about
We
it.
were confused.
Yeah, because we didn't accept black and proud. We
Right.
didn't accept that.
Right. And Stokely Carmichael said, black power.
And even think about NAACP today. The NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored
Colored people.
Because we wouldn't accept black.
Right, so we've had all of these.
We didn't even accept African. And you talk to ladies right now. You
Yes.
talk to some of your friends today.
Yes.
If you talking about being African American, I ain't lost nothing in Africa.
Right,
I ain't going back over there.
right.
They won't accept any part of that.
And you mentioned being confused, and let me add this to the confusion. Divided.
Yes.
And that's why we're talking about unity. Divided, all of these different divisions and refusal to cooperate with moving forward progressively. I'm going to use that word, progressively. And not just that, I said, Stokely Carmichael said, black power. So the word power. And also many of us are afraid of power. We're afraid of superiority. If you bring up power to some of them, you bring up being superior to some of them, they think that you're the one with the problem. Or they'll even say you're the one with the problem. I recall talking to some people about the difference between a belief system and a knowledge system. And one was superior to the other one. And they absolutely, only one person in that discussion got the point. The rest of them wanted to hold on to this, as I surmised it, inferiority complex. You see, so yeah, black power, African American. People say that Jesse Jackson gave us the term African American. That is simply not true. Jesse Jackson made the announcement on TV because there was a convention that took place in Louisiana. Dr. Hyde and all of the scholars and experts were there, and they agreed. I respect the process. You know why I respect the process? Because it was a group consensus. We can get together today after this meeting and come up with a group consensus. And once we agree, we move out with that agreement. If we say, well, no one should go before the cameras this month, and someone breaks out from the group and run to the TV station, radio down there, and jump in front of the camera. Those are the kinds of problems we run into in the past. So unity, consensus, agreement, is what we need as a people. Now, maybe it's not good. Some people don't like the American part. Some people don't like America, period. Some of the activists, etc., because they're thinking about the history and what we've gone through in this country. But I look for the bigger picture. I look for the advantages in terms of, because it's war, like you said, Omar. And to extract the best strategy in this war going forward is what I look for. Anyone just have a final comment on that? Let's get back to some more of this police killing, and then let's try to close out with some local politics. Omar?
You know, as I was listening to Dr. Luke and that lady on the phone, right now when we talk about Negro, who are we talking about? That's kind of a demeaning term.
It is a demeaning term.
Right? That's just one step of nigger, but nowhere close to being black or African American.
Yes.
Because of the way it has been delineated down through the century. White folks called us that, and we started resenting it. And then they put somebody who, a Negro, somebody who's going to follow the wishes of white folks, even to the detriment of themselves and their own people. But again, that's the kind of thing we got to plunge the depths of. We are in that kind of a state right now. We don't even know who we are still. In this 21st century, we're still trying to find our way. And some people still call themselves Negroes even today. We're just in that bad shape. Yeah, coma phase number 4.
All right. Go ahead, Cedric.
I get a lot of ridicule because I consider myself American because I was born here in America.
Okay.
I say that because when you are born somewhere, that's what it is. I understand that my ancestors came from other places, but I personally was born right here. And I understand the dislike that a lot of people have for their home team or their home whatever it is. I just feel as though we have to make our homeland better. We were born here. This is the land that we're actually allocated to. We don't have birthrights anywhere else. Mm-hmm. But as far as I'm concerned, like I said, African American, yes. I mean, the Mexican American. You have a lot of different types of Americans because mm-hmm. there is no blanket American. Mm-hmm. Because unless you take all these indigenous folks. Mm-hmm. Again, let me also say something about on the black part and the Negro part. Remember who so-called discovered or who came here first. These were Hispanic
yes.
folks, and in their language, Negro means black. Right. They had the red man, they had the yellow man, they had the black man, they had the white man, and this is what they called things. Even the Hispanics that came here, they weren't white themselves. They were Hispanic. They
mm-hmm.
were whatever, they're yellow, tan, whatever color they are. The name.
The Hispanic is a later creation for a group of people, but it was the native people, indigenous Native Americans, etc.
I'm talking about the ones who came over, the Christopher Columbus folks and Amerigo Vespucci, that they are from a Hispanic origin.
Okay.
And if you use that language, that would equate to the black being Negro.
Okay.
Originally.
Well, I get that, yeah. And you're absolutely right about that, but the other part of it is that they were very tribal. I mean, I don't know, I wasn't there, right. But I'm just saying what is in some of the history books. But continue.
Well, remember the other folks, the rest of the indigenous folks, they got hit with this name Indian. And they still,
right, and that was wrong.
Scratching their head about that.
Yeah, right.
They never said it was Indian either, but
that was extremely
that on the chin.
And that was extremely incorrect.
It's extremely incorrect.
Come on, Omar. And then
let's go back and look at history. The oldest bones ever found in the United States of America or in North America belong to a black man, and they were found in Eugene, Oregon. And those bones were dated 11,000 years old. Mm-hmm. If you go down in Central and South America, the oldest bones ever found in Central and South America also belong to black people. Mm-hmm. And they were not Hispanic. They were just African folk.
Yes, man.
Mm-hmm. They had no language called Hispaniola or whatever they want to call it. Mm-hmm. That was not the history.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Everywhere you go on earth, including China, the oldest people ever found in China belonged to black folk.
Yes.
Go to Japan, they called them the Jomon. They were Japanese, but they were jet black with straight hair, with slanted eyes.
Right.
There's nowhere on earth you can go and find bones older than the black man.
Right.
And he was not Hispanic, he was not Irish, he was not none of that. He was black, period. Period.
Yes. And
you can't go anywhere and find anybody that has proof otherwise.
right. And Cedric, one more comment on that?
No, we got a call.
You good?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Now, listen, I have to bow down to the elders when they come out there with that real history and that real facts. I come up with my newfound history.
Do we have a caller on the line?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, caller. Good morning. Hey, Gigi. We're going to get back to it. Go ahead. Okay. 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 All right, thank you. Thank you for your call. And when you hear all of these names, that tells you something about a people. What has happened to them, Omar? Talut. All these different names. But it means that people are fighting to come up with who they are, and true sense of their value, their worth, and their self-identity. That's what that tells you. And some people have not fully accepted African American, Omar. And some people are still coming up with new names and different names and etc. But when you say African American, Isaac, this is the latest group consensus that has gained more traction than any other group or organization at this point. So I'm not in favor of identifying myself as nigger, Negro, and you heard me define what a Negro is. I'm not really, and rarely do you see a person who is black, and you don't even see a person who is white. So I'm not in favor of demeaning myself or my people or people who look like me. Now, we've got 10 minutes, we've got about 10 minutes left. Let's move as fast as we can. Talut, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I called.
Do we have a call? Let's hear from Talut. Go ahead, Talut.
No, take the call.
Okay. Go ahead, call and make it quick. We're short on time. Go ahead. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Well, all right. Let me come in on you. Hold on a second. We have less than 10 minutes left. You went over some of the things that we covered already. And if you want to say that this is a progress in a process in motion, if you will, then you have to present that where it is acceptable by the majority of the people. I mean, you saying that alone and by yourself in a group, you have to have a convention. Right now, the convention that came up with the African American has, as I said before, has gained more traction. I agree with you to a great extent because people are named by a land base. The Japanese are in Japan, Chinese are in China, etc. But you have to have a process and a plan and a convention and a debate. I'm having a problem with the word don't, because you're talking to grown people, and to tell grown people don't do this and don't do that and what not to do is problematic going into your okay. All right. Got you. Hey, do like, we have less than, all right. The young lady who called, that was a great call. And we do want the young lady to call again, because she she mentioned some historical points that are very valid, as Omar has said, as you've said, Cedric. And Talut, real quick, we've got about 7 or 8. How many minutes do we have left?
7.
We have 7 minutes left in the show. In fact, she turned the tide.
Well, everybody is entitled to their opinion and views, regardless of fact. Okay, and so we're getting a lot of that today out of the Trump administration, where fact is just turned around and you know,
Yes,
you
sir.
say anything, you say lie,
Yes,
whatever
sir.
it is, accepted, and we move forward. So everyone has their opinion and views. Now, but the fact is, since you don't want to hear the word Negro, and in fact, I didn't use the word Negro initially. I said African American and Black American, okay? But nevertheless, and the word Negro does mean black in Spanish, okay? Now, but the point of the matter is, how could 40 million people exist in a land in modern day time and they are not citizens but benefit from everything that citizens benefit from as Americans? Become congressmen of the United States, become president of the United States, become generals in armies and admirals in the Navy, take flight from the planet Earth and enter into the space, become doctors and lawyers, practice law in court, defending and prosecuting, enter into any institution in the land, and not be a citizen of the land.
All right. Well, we thank the young lady for her call. We didn't get her name, but she's very intelligent. We thank her for her call, and we are inviting her to call back. In fact, she turned the tide on today's show. But Omar, according to let's get back. We've got a few minutes to say something about this police killing thing, and they're talking about. And here's the problem: when they investigate their own. And we've even had a citizens review board around here that has not produced, it leaves a lot to be desired, I'll put it that way. And they say that they were called, the investigation, in other words, was what they're saying. This Tamar, what's his name? Crawford. They were attempting a traffic stop. Instead, that's why we have to deal with these illegal traffic stops. On July 5th, after officers smelled marijuana coming from the car. And there are many young white teenagers riding around smoking weed while they're driving in their cars. And they're not getting shot and killed. So this was the young man earlier that I was talking about, Omar, that a wrestle ensued. The guy who was not in the wrestling debacle shot Tamar Crawford and killed him. 7 times. Shot him and killed him.
Unarmed.
Unarmed. He felt that his life was threatened. Wait a minute. You're fighting. You're not in the fight. Your partner is fighting. But your life, you feel that your life is threatened? The other young man was running down the street. The cop shot him in the back of the head, Cedric, killed him instantly. And he said, I felt that my life was threatened. This is crazy. So legislation, lawsuits, referendum, protest, rising up, and these are general terms that we'll get into more in terms of the solutions to the problem that we face as a people. Next week, let's talk more, Cedric, about local politics and how we do carry these things out. You know, let's talk more about how we upgrade our communities that we live in.
Also to add that the young boy who was shot in the back of the head
Yes.
was only 16 years old.
He was 16 years
He was a
old.
little kid.
Yes.
And he watched that boy.
A child.
He watched that boy run across the field, and he couldn't. He saw the boy jump the fence, and his little lazy cop couldn't see himself jumping that fence. So he stood there like one of them deer. The movies where you watch the slave master. I'll just use that for an example, where he tells you could be free if you can get away. And they have 8 boys out there shooting at you. But a boy running across the field, there was nothing there. The boy was just wide open, nice clear run.
Yes.
And the cop took his time, aimed real good. And I think there was a black cop that shot him. Shot him in the back of the head.
Could have been.
And popped his head open like a daggone tomato. 16 years old, killed that boy.
Yeah, in the prime of his life, and if he was black, he was wrong too.
Yeah.
And next week we'll get into the psychology of those killer cops who kill black people. The psychology. That was going to be a good key question. I was looking forward to hearing the analysis of the panel. We've got a great panel here. And tune in next week as we do 2 things. The psychology, as we get into and discuss the psychology of killer cops. And let's take a look at local politics and politicians. City council.
We got to weigh in on that. 90% of the Memphis youth have been tested positive
For lead poisoning.
For lead contamination.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Good shit, good shit.
What a good show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, this thing lit up.
What happened?